It's September 2004 in the Bighorn Mountains, and a Crow Nation man goes missing while on a hunting trip. He was experienced and knew the area well. Over a year later, a crow bird leads a hunter to human remains, and there are more questions left than answers. When Indigenous people go missing or die in remote places, their stories too often disappear into silence, treated as footnotes instead of human lives. This is the mysterious disappearance and death of Robert Bugsy. Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. My name is Elise, and I'm your host. And I want to say thanks so much for joining me today. I am pre recording these, so I am recording in February, and this is for, I think, like end of March. So I appreciate you listening today, and just know that I am so excited it's March, and I cannot wait. I actually will be heading down to southern Utah and northern Arizona to do some hiking for my spring break. So, super excited about that. But that's not why we're here today. We are here to talk about some hard stuff. And I want to start off with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Bighorn Mountains are a part of the ancestral homelands of many indigenous nations, including the Crow, Shoshone, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. For generations, these nations have lived with, traveled through, and cared for these mountains, which hold deep cultural, spiritual, and historical meaning. We honor their enduring connection to this land and recognize their continued presence, sovereignty, and stewardship of the Bighorn Mountains and surrounding plains. Now, I couldn't find any negative reviews about this area, so we don't have any negative reviews today. But we are going to talk about the Bighorn Mountains. Now, these Bighorn Mountains are a mountain range in northern Wyoming and southern Montana in the United States. And they're really, really pretty. If you've never been, you should try to go. They are separated from the Absaroka Range, which lie on the main branch of the Rockies to the west by the Bighorn Basin. Much of the land is contained within the Bighorn National Forest. Now, the Bighorns provided important resources for ancestral indigenous people, including plants, migratory big game, rock shelters, teepee poles, and stone for tools. Indigenous peoples' trails crisscrossed the range, while the canyons provided important winter shelters. Stone game blinds in the high country were used by pedestrian hunters to kill migratory big game animals with atlatl propelled spears or bows. Sorry, I cannot read today. It's okay. The northern bighorns and the Tongue River drainage were formerly a significant summer range for migratory bison that wintered in either the Bighorn Basin and the Powder River or Tongue River drainage areas. The southern bighorns, particularly the middle fork of the Powder River, contained an important American Indian trail adjacent to a bison migration corridor. So this area is really rich in history and ancient peoples and ancestors' lives for the indigenous people of the United States, especially in Wyoming and Montana. So yeah, I we're talking about this today, and I just want to say I'm not an expert. Everything telling you is what I found online, and it might or might not be accurate because it was online. So please be patient with me. I'm just trying to do my best over here. Something cool about this area is that there's a medicine wheel and on the northern end of the Bighorns, and it's an important sacred site that was built by ancestral tribes, and it is still used in present day American Indian ceremonies or indigenous ceremonies. Ancestors of the Shoshone tribe likely had the longest continuous association with the Bighorns, potentially dating back 1,000 years or more. There have been stone artifacts found in the Absaroka Range farther west are known to have originated in the Bighorn, suggesting that ancestral movement between the two ranges. So, really rich in human history dating back thousands and thousands of years. The Bighorn Mountains are named for the Bighorn River, which originated with the Crow. According to a Crow oral tradition, shortly after the Crow located in this region, discovered the sacred tobacco, a stepfather pushed his son off of the rim of a canyon, intending to do him harm. The boy was caught in a juniper tree and survived for 4 days until he was rescued by the seven sacred bighorn rams. The largest of these rams was the chief of all the bighorns. This ram had horns of metal and was called Big Metal. This ram implored the boy that the name of the river was the Bighorn River and told the boy that if the name of the Bighorn River was ever changed, the Crow tribe would cease to exist. The name of the river became the basis for naming the Bighorn Mountains. So I just thought that was a cool piece of story from the tribes that inhabited this area. So you would think that since this area is all about bighorns, the bighorn sheep, that there would be a lot of them, but unfortunately there no longer are because overhunting of bighorn sheep and livestock diseases and parasites introduced from domestic sheep grazing largely wiped out the native population of bighorn sheep by the early 1900s. That also happened here in Utah as well. Today, the only herd of bighorn sheep in the namesake range is a reintroduced herd near Devil's Canyon in the northern part of the range. Bighorn Canyon National Recreation Area consists of approximately 120,000 acres, while the Bighorn Mountains, within the Bighorn Mountains, it include it includes Bighorn Lake, a reservoir damming, and the Bighorn River. So, um, this is a really it's a really large area, and a lot of the names are pretty similar, so hopefully it doesn't get too confusing. In 2015, a sudden huge gash was formed in Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains. The Wyoming Geological Survey studied the area and determined that what they're calling as the crack may be the result of an apparent active landslide in the southern end of the Bighorn Mountains. So it's all very interesting. There's still a lot of shaping that is happening to these mountain ranges, even though they are so old as it is. And it's happening like in a pretty in a pretty big way. So the Bighorns are a popular destination for hiking, backpacking, fly fishing, hunting, horseback riding, and increasingly becoming popular with ATV riding and snowmobiling. Fishing opportunities abound in the Bighorns with a high prevalence of brook trout. There's a lot of camping because there are a lot of camping facilities that are established with toilets and things like that across most of the Bighorn Mountains. Wilderness users must register at trailheads, but no permit is required, although there are regulations about group sizes, prohibiting fires at high elevations, and camping away from water sources, much like everywhere else in our national forest systems. Higher trails are often covered with snow, except from July through August. And after Labor Day, there's always a good chance of high country snowstorms at any time. And one thing that I found interesting about this area is that the Bighorns are actually home to one of the elite ultra marathons in the nation, and it's called the Bighorn Trail Run. It's held every June, and it's 100 miles. So that is kind of crazy and intense. I never heard of it before. But today we are here to discuss the bizarre disappearance and death of Robert Bugsy Springfield in the Bighorn Mountains. So I called him Robert Bugsy earlier. He went by Bugsy. I didn't attempt to say his indigenous name because Even Googling it was not going to help me out with that, but he does have a Native American name that it's listed in the episode description. So he went by Bugsy. His name was Robert, and I'm going to call him Bugsy because that's how he's referenced in my source material. Now, Bugsy was born in the Crow Agency on December 20th, 1955. His parents were Robert Springfield Sr. and Emma Bugsy. I'm sorry, Emma Springfield. Bugsy and his family were members of the Nation Indian Reservation, and they hunted on the ground owned by the tribe. Again, I put his Native American name, and his Native American name was given to him by the late Shoshone Sundance chief John Trujillo. Bugsy grew up in the Lodge Grass and Wyola areas and attended grade school in Wyola and high school in Lodge Grass, where he played basketball and football. Now, at the age of 17, Bugsy enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. After boot camp in San Diego, he served at 29 Palms, California, somewhere in North Carolina, Australia, Japan, and the Philippines. So, very well traveled and served our country. He played basketball for the Corps while stationed at Camp Lejeune. I think I'm saying that right. He received his honorable discharge in June 1977. Later on, he graduated from Billings Vocational Technical School in April 1979. He worked for the Sarpy coal mine as a diesel mechanic for 3 years and as a heavy equipment operator and wildlands firefighter for several years. He was a very well rounded individual. Bugsy married Veronica Burdenground in July 1979, and the couple made their home in Lodgegrass, so kind of where they were both familiar with and where Bugsy kind of grew up. Now, Bugsy loved motorcycle cross country trips on his Harley Davidson. I can only imagine how freeing that would be. He was the first Parkman Renegades on the basketball team, and he traveled to independent tournaments around the Pacific North, always bringing home MVP, all star jackets, and trophies. He was extremely athletic and just kind of this like bright light. I mean, everybody knew him. He was well loved in his community, and he was just kind of this larger than life guy. Bugsy loved hunting, but he especially enjoyed fishing on the Little Horn River area near Wyola. While growing up, if he wasn't home, he was at his Auntie Rita's house where he spent much of his childhood. Bugsy was well known for his sense of humor, and he was super good at giving his nieces and nephews nicknames. And his grand, I mean, he's just kind of like he gave out nicknames to all of his family, including his nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. And they all use those nicknames to this day. The nicknames always suited the person. He enjoyed spending time with his very large family, and his boys were the joy of his life, and he loved spending time with him. But the miracle of his life was his only daughter, Velma. The highlights of his life were his 11 grandchildren. So he lived a very, very happy and full life from what I've read online. He traveled a lot, served our country, and went back to school after getting out of the Marine Corps and really was a jack of all trades, like, was very, very hands-on, get down, get dirty, knew how to do a lot of things like mechanics, hunting, knew a lot about sports, had a big happy family, and his one thing in life was his pride for his family. And on September 19th, 2004, Bugsy, he was 48 at the time, and his 13-year-old son, Colton, and his adopted son, Brent, they went to Black Canyon to hunt elk in the Crow Indian Reservation. Like I said earlier, this area is located in the Bighorn Mountains, and after a day of hunting, Bugsy's two sons returned to the prearranged spot in the late afternoon where he had agreed to meet them. The children waited until after dark, and they still had not seen Bugsy. And so the boys did the right thing and they informed the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office and members of the tribe. This was really alarming as he was extremely experienced, knew this area very well, and would never have left his two sons, to meet at his truck and him not be there. So it's very out of character for Bugsy. So I think people initially had hope because he was actually wearing heavy winter clothing and he was armed with a bow and arrows the day he disappeared. So I think initially people thought he just maybe twisted his ankle or got lost and hurt and he just needed to be found. So a FLIR equipped helicopter searched the area where Bugsy was thought to be. The family and the Bureau of Indian Affairs brought in sniffer dogs and horseback searchers. But nothing was found. No equipment, body, bones, or blood. Nothing was found from Robert Bugsy Springfield. And just over a year later, in October 2005, there was another hunter in Black Canyon, and he had heard a crow, like the bird, screeching. The bird was so loud and incessantly screeching. So the hunter walked over to where the crow was sitting on a tree, and right below it were human remains. And what a strange scene near this tree. There was a partial skull, a femur, and a neatly rolled up men's belt next to the skull and two boots. Now, in addition to that stuff that was found, there was also a men's coat on the ground that had a small tear in the back, and a wallet containing money was also found. But the bow and arrows were nowhere to be found. The FBI was called as the sheriff and BIA assumed foul play, and the physical evidence was removed for further analysis. I think that calling in the FBI was the right thing to do because it does seem like foul play, and the circumstances regarding the remains and the items found with the remains is so bizarre. It's literally so weird. So they sent the remains with the FBI to a lab in Virginia for processing, and they were backlogged. And the family did not get his remains for quite a while. So, November 1st, 2007, the FBI says that it now has approval to release the remains, but an exact date hadn't been specified. And Bugsy's wife was very skeptical. Um, his remains have had been stuck at the FBI lab in Virginia due to a backlog in DNA processing, and an exact cause of death has never been stated. So, someone probably killed him, let's be honest, because if you die out in the wilderness, you're not gonna roll up your belt and set it neatly next to some boots in your remains. Like, that's not a thing. And where did his bow and arrows go? I don't know. Many people think that this might have been a hunting accident or a deliberate shooting. I think most people that knew anything about the case at the time thought that he was killed and that was homicide. So his death certificate was released to the family on November 16th, 2007, 2 years after his remains were found. The cause of death was listed as undetermined. Several items in his wallet, including his ID and social security card, were returned to the family with no obvious signs of weathering or water damage, which the family believed meant that they were not exposed to the elements for any lengthy period. Which I would have to agree because if you leave a wallet outside, out in the wilderness, for a year, it's going to have snow on it, it's going to get wet, and there will be weathering and sun damage to it, but Bugsy's wallet and his ID and social security card were not weathered or water damaged. So this is where I think this was foul play, or maybe there's a cover up or something. So if foul play was involved, why didn't the assailant take the wallet with the money or even his ID? Um, I think it's interesting that the belt and boots were found nearby the bones, and investigators, they try to get all the pieces together, and they think, or they thought at the time, that a tree fell on Bugsy, but the physical evidence at the scene didn't support that theory. So that was the only thing that they could think, like, oh, well, a tree fell on him and he died. Like, that was it. And there wasn't really further investigation into his death, which is really sad, and it's not right at all. Now, at the time, his family thought that maybe he had been murdered and his body was disposed of later. They said that if he was actually up there in that area, to put it bluntly, like, they would have smelled something. That's what, his wife said, like, "If he was up there, we would have known because the animals would have been there and the birds would have been there," and she is so right. When there is a human body decaying and decomposing outside, it attracts animals, and usually bones get scattered across an area because of predation, but that did not happen in this case, not that they could tell. And animals also do not roll up a belt and set it by boots either. So, what happened to Bugsy that day? I went online. This is from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. But I do love looking on Reddit because people actually, we all have different thought processes, and I like hearing from others. So, this is a theory that I saw on Reddit. Could it have been an accidental shooting by another hunter that could possibly give some reason to try and hide his body? There would have been no need to be interested in emptying his wallet, and if he had a heavy coat, it may have been mistaken for an animal pelt. Could also explain why the body was found later. In a place that was already searched. Maybe whoever potentially hid the body was feeling guilty and wanted the remains to be found so that the family could lay him to rest. I think this is probable. This maybe could have happened, because it does explain different things that why there was no money taken if it wasn't to, take if he wasn't being robbed, if it was just accidental. And I do find it interesting. This person said that he was found in an area that had already been searched. I did not see that online, but I could have missed it. Someone else said, I think I remember a deep dive on this case, and one of the very credible working theories was that he had become injured and used the belt as a field tourniquet based on the placement near the femur. It was positioned that he may have dropped the bow and arrows to drop weight, especially if he was injured or attempt to self rescue. I've seen people cache all sorts of stuff when that they retrieve later. Wallets, especially well-made leather wallets, are actually pretty weatherproof and depending on where the wallet was, may have been sheltered by the body or other layers to protect contents from weathering. At the ti as for the time it took the FBI to get the forensics back or to return things to the family, 2 years isn't uncommon. Keep in mind that in 2004, forensic pathologists for the FBI were still processing the remains from 9/11. There was quite a backlog of parts, to be blunt. So this person says, probably no foul play. Things can be explained in other ways. Um, but interesting. So I don't know, just credible working theories. I don't know. And, we really don't know what happened to Bugsy out there. Someone else said, "What if he faked his own death?" I mean, if they can't 100% sure be sure that the skull belongs to Robert, in my opinion, with his military experience, if he didn't want to be found, he can easily hide and vanish away, then start a new life somewhere. I'm just a dork. Watch too many movies, don't mind me. I find this theory possible. Probably not not probable, but possible because people do that. I mean, just last month, there was a mom who'd been missing for 20 something years and presumed dead, and she was found alive. So some people just walk away and leave their lives behind. I don't think that's what happened in this case, but that theory is usually brought up when we're discussing um, mysterious disappearances or deaths. I think that probably the bones were identified as Robert Springfield's. I don't know. Nothing that I saw online personally said that they weren't sure whose skull it was. But anyways, when you go on Reddit, you're never sure what you're gonna read that day. The wilderness is often framed as empty, untouched, or neutral, but it really isn't. These lands are layered with history, with movement, with memory, and with people who have lived in relationship with them for thousands of years. When indigenous people go missing or die in remote places, their stories too often disappear into silence, treated as footnotes instead of human lives. These aren't just mysteries, they're reminders of how systems fail, how jurisdictional gaps, underfunded searches, and media indifference leave families waiting without answers. Every person lost on these lands deserves the same urgency, the same care, and the same commitment to truth. If the wilderness remembers, then so should we. We honor those who never made it home by speaking their names, by demanding accountability, and by refusing to let their stories fade into the background of the landscape they loved. Too often, Indigenous names fade into the background of media, especially when time is of the essence. I don't know if we'll ever find out what happened to Robert Bugsy Springfield, but his family still deserves answers. His family's still waiting for answers. And there is no reason acceptable that our government just kind of push this to the side. It's obvious that something happened out there. And the fact that like, the FBI just said, "Undetermined." Sorry, that's not good enough, and that will never be good enough for anyone of any race, color, or ethnicity. Everybody's case should be treated with the same importance. So, I just wanted to cover Robert's case because I am it's saddening, it's so saddening, and his case happened before missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, like, this whole thing was kind of started. I mean, these things, these cases, these people have been going missing and getting murdered so much, and I mean, since Europeans came over here, and, it's really sad because he left behind an entire huge family that he loved, and he was a huge role in many people's lives. He served our nation, and when his death was treated as, "Oh, we don't really know," that's just it's so fucked up. It is really fucked up. So, I chose to cover Robert Bugsy Springfield's case because I don't feel like it's talked about. I really don't feel like it's talked about enough, and I think that more people need to hear about it because I think his family still could get answers and they're still waiting. And so please share his case. Please share, please talk about it. I mean, I don't know what else to do except to talk about it here. So thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys here next time. As always, recreate responsibly and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. You can also join us on Patreon for early and ad-free content. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.